Mark Rogers, TV talking some Florida football with David Waters, of course, from Gators Breakdown. You can join both of us on a SEC Breakdown. Dave and the crew breaking down Florida football each and every week, and we fill in some of the gaps along the way. David, how you doing tonight?
Doing pretty good, Mark. Ready to talk some more Gators defense with you.
Yeah, so a lot of starters lost on the entire defense. What about 8 starters gone, something like that, off the entirety of the defense, and 2 big names, especially Caleb Brantley, across the defensive front, maybe looking for some outside pass rush as well to field another top defense.
For sure, Mark. Yeah, it's going to start up front with this Florida defensive front, the front 7 there. And, while I think the starters are okay, kind of much like we talked about with the defensive backs, the starters will be okay, but, depth may be an issue here. So, all across, especially the front 7, you know how tough it is in the SEC when you got to go against those running games week in and week out with Georgia, LSU, maybe Alabama. You played in the SEC championship game. That front 7 for Florida has to be ready to play. Has to have some more young guys step up for probably a second year in a row.
Yeah, and there's also some guys along the defensive front like C.C. Jefferson. You got Clayton as well, who came in as a highly prized recruit, who are going to be counted upon to fulfill that potential.
For sure, they had problems defending the run a bit last year. Allowed about 150 yards rushing to teams, and that won't get it done, consistently with defense that's probably expecting to take a step back with all the guys that you mentioned that are going, Caleb Brantley, Joey Ivey up front. There's going to be a lot of underclassmen that are going to be come in and asked to do something in this front 7. So, defensive end, I think you probably remember a year ago, a guy I kind of singled out was Jabari Zuniga, and he definitely came along. He played in all 13 games for the Gators, and he earned a start in 3 of those games, 25 tackles on the season, 1 forced fumble. He had 8.5 tackles for loss and led the team in sacks with 5 sacks, with plus 11 more quarterback hurries. So Jabari Zuniga was a guy I targeted going into the season last year, and he held his own. Now, what I would like to see from him is we need to see it against better competition. He did rack his stats up against the UMasses and North Texases of the world, played really good in the Georgia game, and kind of came on later in the year. But, a lot of the stats came against the weaker of the competition. So, he'll be in that rotation with Jordan Sherritt, Kavanis Davis, Antonius Clayton. Antonius Clayton's probably going to be that guy I target again like I did Zuniga last year. Clayton and when he came in last year, as you mentioned, he was highly touted, but he had trouble getting on the field as a freshman. He had an illness right before the season started, or right after he arrived on campus. My bad, and then lost some weight. And then toward the end of the season, he injured his arm right before the Florida State game. So he missed the last 2 games, but played in 5 games, totaled 3 tackles, 3 quarterback hurry, and 1 recovered fumble. Florida's expecting a lot of him to live up to that high recruiting billing that he got. But also, you have Jordan Sherritt coming back, who he's the only senior on this defensive line. Played in 10 games last year. He's the kind of guy who sets the edge in the running game for Florida. So Florida needs him to get back from a knee injury that caused him to miss a few games last year. They're really going to count on him. Hopefully, he can come in the fall and come back pretty fast and be ready for that Michigan game. But those are the guys, and of course C.C. Jefferson. He can move inside, he can move outside, he can play basically any position you want him to play along this defensive line. So he's definitely one of the best Florida has. He was a 5-star recruit going back to Jim McElwain's first recruiting cycle. But he excelled inside. But with Brantley gone, it's going to be weird. Hopefully Zuniga and Clayton come along like I hope they do, or that they think they should, and they can stick with Jefferson inside if he needs to be, and moving back outside when the play calls for it. 3rd and long situations, maybe Jefferson, you have 3 of those 3 guys, rushing the passer in those situations. But it's played in 12 games in 2016. C.C. Jefferson did. Started in 6 of them, 30 tackles, 6.5 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks, and 5 quarterback hurries. So, along with C.C. Jefferson playing inside sometimes, you got Kerry Clark and Taven Bryan coming back as well. There's Kerry Clark's one of the veterans on the roster. Started in 3 to 13 games for the Gators. 16 tackles there for Kerry Clark. Taven Bryan, they call him the Wyoming Wild Man. So we'll kind of see if he can live up to that billing here. But some young guys also to keep an eye on from there. Jacal Polite, he played in 12 games. You can see if he can come along nicely. He has a nice base. He started nice with 11 tackles, three and a half of those being for loss. So with 11 tackles, 3.5 being for loss, kind of proving that he can be a playmaker in the limited time that he got. 2 sacks also to go along with that. So as I mentioned, Florida has some stars along the defensive line with Zuniga and CeCe Jefferson, but we're going to and Jordan Sherritt to a degree. But a lot of these young guys are going to have to definitely step up.
Yeah, so with all that Florida homegrown talent at the high school ranks, are the Gators having to go all the way to Wyoming to grab talent? Is that where this kid's coming from?
Yeah, they don't do that too often, but so you hope when they do, they actually nail on the guy. It would be nice for Taven Bryan Kerry Clark and Taven Bryan are going to be asked to do a lot at that defensive tackle position, so they don't have to play so many young guys. I don't think Florida will have a problem having to play young guys. We've seen it, but you would definitely like Jefferson, Clark, Bryan, definitely Clark and Bryan to be the cogs on the inside, so you can move Jefferson inside and outside when you want to. Hopefully he doesn't have to be counted on to bring up and be the main playmaker at defensive tackle. You want to be able to move Jefferson around, so hopefully Clark and Bryan can solidify that middle, and then the coaches have some freedom to move Jefferson around.
All right, David Waters, of course, breaking down the Gators. Join him on Gators Breakdown each and every week. You can listen to the audio on SoundCloud or iTunes, and also the video at SEC Breakdown, along with some of my content looking at the rest of the SEC. All right, Davis, Morrison gone, those guys off that linebacking crew. Yeah, I'm guessing you love David Reese. He seems to be getting a lot of the pub as somebody who could really step up and be a star in this league.
Yeah, Mark, he kind of, they were throwing to the fire a lot of these young guys, starting with David Reese, started 4 games after Jared Davis went down in the Arkansas game. He has a nose for the ball. That's what I like about him. He's definitely going to just stick his nose in there and go get a tackle. Kylan Johnson also probably will play one of the outside linebacker spots, very instinctive guy. And Vashawn Joseph, he's the big hitter. He lays the wood. He's that linebacker for Florida. Those are the 3 guys that I think will get a majority of the playing time from what we've seen at the end of last year and going into spring. David Reese missed spring practice, but figures to be the main guy in the middle. He's the 2nd leading returning tackler for Florida with 49 stops last year. Kylan Johnson is the 4th leading returning tackler, and I really like his instincts and speed. Vashawn Joseph, he's best remembered for that goal line hit against LSU quarterback Danny Etling last year. But he got his first start in the Outback Bowl against Iowa and was a star in that game. 6 tackles, 1 for a loss, 1 pass breakup. So, it's those 3 guys. Those are the main 3 cogs that, as I mentioned, when Jared Davis and Alex Anzalone went down in the Arkansas game last year, these guys were asked to come in and do a lot. They did struggle at times. You could tell they were young. They missed some assignments. But, they got a big win on the road when they went to LSU. Darius guys got a pretty good start in that game. That defense with these young linebackers went, the second half completely shut that LSU run game down. For 3 quarters, did well against Florida State and Alabama, and then they come out in the bowl game and also played very well against Iowa. One of the best performances of the defense throughout the year with all these young guys. So, Florida has a good foundation here, but there's always going to be some players behind those guys. Forbid another injury-plagued season at linebacker. If that happened, Florida's going to ask some young guys to step in.
All right, talking some Florida defense. The Gators, one of the more sound units in all of college football in recent years, and certainly star-studded across the board, beyond what we think in regards to being DBU. The front 7, always one of the best as well. You got to join David on Gators Breakdown. Again, it's iTunes, it's SoundCloud for the audio versions, and also at SEC Breakdown on YouTube. So join us right there. We give you the entirety of the league, SEC Breakdown, YouTube. Subscribe there. Follow us on Twitter, and also like us on Facebook as well. All right, David, we're getting there. We're almost to August camp, and of course, SEC Media Days start next Monday.
Yeah, they do. And Florida announced it's going to be, Martez Ivy, Duke Dawson, and Marcel Harris going to SEC Media Day. So it should be a good day for Florida. You know, 2 defensive guys, 1 offensive guy with Martez Ivy there along the offensive line. So it will be interesting to see because, you know, this will be really the first time the media gets to talk to Jim McElwain about bringing Malik Zaire in and going head-to-head with Felipe Franks for the quarterback battle. So there'll be a lot of good info coming out of Hoover for SEC Media Days pertaining to Florida, Malik Zaire, Felipe Franks, and replacing a lot of these guys on defense.
All right, David, thanks for getting us caught up on the Gators front 7.
Thanks, Mark.